last hour, a new report from the United Nations shows some shocking statistics about the world's population growth and what we will need to do to sustain the masses.
They always say that the next big war is going to be a food war or a water war. Tom Sater joins us now. Break it down for us, my friend.
Well, this is quite confusing, and like we mentioned, the report just came out, so I'm going to try to do it justice. This is really nothing to do with, carbon gas and emissions, but population plays a big role. The United Nations Population Fund, it talks about where are the countries that have a growing youth population, which is dependent on working class, what countries are looking at an aging population that's also dependent on a government, and what governments need to do something now to educate, health, and to give them jobs in the future. And this is really interesting. So again, it's confusing. When we break it down, we're talking about children mainly from around 10 to 24 years old. They're going to be entering the workforce. So let's break this down. Right now, the report says 1.8 billion around the world are between the ages of 10 and 24. The report talks about a correlation between developing countries and large youth populations. Got to do something about it now. So you've got to invest in health. You've got to invest in counseling to push the children and not just educate them, but get them ready for jobs and the infrastructure for jobs. 9 out of 10 of the world's young people live in less developed countries. Demographic dividend. Listen to this. What is that? That's a correlation between the working population larger than the dependent population. We talked about that. Where's the working class? Where do we have the youth and the aging? Demographic shifts right now are taking place in 60 countries. We're going to be talking not just about sub-Saharan Africa, which is seeing the biggest growth, but let's go back to 1950 to the year 2050. Notice in orange, these countries are in transition, seeing a very large outbreak of young children. Central America, Bolivia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Madagascar. This is Iraq. We've got Afghanistan and Yemen and Nepal. We've got Laos. We've got Papua New Guinea. In green, we're seeing an increasing dependence. The age of their citizens getting a little older, dependent on the government in the future. The U.S. up in areas around Greenland, most of Europe. We're looking at Japan as well. Late transition means they've got children now. They got to start planning, and that is a big part of the population right now. So again, Sub-Saharan Africa, when I show you what they're looking at as far as an eruption, an explosion in their population, let's break it down. As we look at the numbers, in orange here, the least developed countries are looking at an increase of children 15 to 64 years old. That's the workforce, over 100%. By the year 2050. Sub-Saharan Africa, almost 150% by the year 2050. Notice Asia. This is because of family planning, rules, regulations on the size of families and things like that. Let's break it down a little further. This gets confusing. 30 years ago, look at the lines. Green is the Philippines, blue is Thailand, and then we have South Korea. About 3 years ago, started to see a split. By the year 2050, the Philippines' young population is expected to just explode, while we have Thailand and South Korea pretty much staying steady to the year 2050. You can sustain that if you plan ahead now. Some countries are. Look what happens when you project the future. What does this mean? If they're planning like they are in the Philippines, even with the high population growth, with companies moving in, planning their education, they're still not going to be very dependent on the government. If you plan now, and they're saying, even though they've got a lower population in parts of South Korea and Thailand, if you don't do something about the education in the near future, you're going to find a greater percentage of people being dependent on your government. It's a nice report. Try to do it justice. If you can get it, the World United Nations Population Fund just released. There's a lot of countries right now that really have to start thinking about their youth.
It's a big heads up, isn't it? Yeah.
So the big takeaway is education.
Funding, planning.
And
the report breaks it down into clean water. You want, lower fertility. You want higher mortality, so that workforce sustains all countries of the world.
Wow.
It's
astounding.
Fascinating. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that, and important as well. Tom Sater there with that.
Breaking that down for us, Tom.